thanks a million for doing this, first of all. Um, I really appreciate you taking the time out. It's exciting to have you on. I've had Hobart on before,
Oh yeah,
um,
he's great.
so I've got the full ham now.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
the full as formerly known as the ham. That's right.
yeah. Um, I read that you discovered coffee in 2019. I was on your LinkedIn and there was some like article or something you had written anyway, and it was like that you had discovered in 2019. So like what were you doing beforehand? Like, what did something change in 2019 that you said, okay, fine, I'll try it, or like how did that come about?
Um, So I think what I mean by discovered, I would, as I kind of think back, is where I just became more or less probably like in a not an aficionado, maybe an aspiring aficionado, but just where it became something that is something I really liked, and it's an enjoyable part of my day and my life.
Hmm.
Um, where you can just drink coffee, or it can be a part of your day, right? It's like when you do more than just press a button, and and coffee drips into a pot, then you're on another level there.
So 2019 is when you started developing snobbery, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that, yeah, it can absolutely be viewed that way. So
Yeah. What have you got a preferred brew method then?
I'm currently my current sort of feeling of favoritism is the Aeropress.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do
So
you?
I was a Chemex for a while. Now I'm Aeropress.
Yeah, I started Chemex again recently. We were away um for a week, and I have like I think you're the American version of it is like the Breville, like like a lot of people have it. It's like a kind of dumbass espresso machine like that anyone can
That's right.
use. So I have one of them, a Sage, one of them, and I brought that with me. But my in-laws have this weird thing about coffee where like when I make coffee it's too strong, and I don't
Hmm.
understand what they mean by too strong. Like I just can't compute what they're talking about, because like they'll go to a coffee shop and they'll get a coffee and it's amazing, and then they have one, and I know mine is like quite similar, but they have a thing
Right.
of, oh, it's too strong. So what I do is if we go away I bring my coffee machine, and I used to be stuck as like a barista every morning for the week we are away or whatever. So this year I brought it, and I just said I'm not touching that for the week, so I'm going to bring my Chemex with me, so whatever they want to do with it, once they don't break it, I don't care. And like it was hard watching and not interfering when they're doing stuff. And you're like, no, no, never mind. But
Right.
yeah, I got a resurgence with the Chemex because of that, and I enjoyed it. But yeah, Aeropress is solid. Do you invert, or do you like pour in the right way up?
I invert it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I invert it. I put the grind, the grinds in, mix it up, let it sit for about a minute, and then slowly push through. So
yeah, yeah. No, it's an enjoyable. It is. I think that process thing is nice. There's something satisfying about it. Um,
yeah, yeah. It's because it in order to make good coffee, patience is a key.
yeah,
And it's because it's easy to make coffee quickly, right? Um, and and oftentimes those that may not care about it, or they don't understand, like, how long does it make for you to make a cup of coffee or something like that. And but it's the experience, right? And I think, as most people say in life, it's the journey, not the destination.
yeah.
Where one might say that coffee is trumps that, where the journey is, but also like a good cup of coffee is a good destination.
Yeah, that's true. Have you got a coffee memory then, somewhere, maybe somewhere you were, someone you were with, or an experience you had where coffee was maybe somewhere on the periphery then?
Yeah, I think something I well, it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day, and when I was in Iceland, and it was the flight from Boston to Iceland is a tough one, because it's a 6 hour time difference, but it's like a less than 6 hour flight, so it's rare. So like you get there, you're pretty banged up. Um, and I I remember my hotel, which is like, it wasn't it's like a really nice, quaint little like building with like, it's not like a normal hotels in the States, where it was just like a cool experience. And I couldn't get into my room because it was too early. And so I just remember looking across the street, and there was a coffee shop there. And it was kind of like, like when you watch a movie that you don't really like, but you just watch, and like, and it like is like a coffee shop in the movie. And, and for us Americans, it's like non-American coffee shops, which
Mm,
are like, just it's a little establishment. It seems it's almost like it's furnished by like whomever owns that place.
yeah.
Um, and I just remember that, and I was there with my butt with Spencer Hendel, and I just remember we sat there and just drank coffee, and obviously because we were in a coffee shop, but it was just one of those moments where in the moment you're like, you know, you're like, you're tired, you're exhausted, but you think back and it's like very picturesque. So it's a cool memory. That coffee was sort of it was there, but it was the whole experience. Iceland's one of my favorite places to go. I love it there. So
Yeah.
it's a cool little memory.
There's a shit ton of fit people there as well.
Yeah, it is disturbing on how, you know, I just remember, walking into Reykjavik, um, and the classes were going on. The gym is full. It's a beautiful affiliate, and everyone, I'm like, man, like everyone is just so, good looking, fit, athletic, nice. Um, it's I'm like, man, this is it, huh? Like, I'm like, part of me is like, I kind of want to live here. Part of me is like, do I want to? Like
Can
everyone's
I
like
do that to my ego?
everyone's like 6 foot plus, like athletic. I'm like, I don't know if I can hang, but yeah, it's a really cool spot.
Yeah, you travel a lot because, well, you have a lot of different reasons to travel, I suppose. But I'm guessing seminar and flow mastering is like largely at play when it comes to traveling. Do you dabble in podcasts when you're on the road, or is that something that you like bother with?
So like just to listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I do a little bit of podcasting. I'm a bigger audiobook guy.
Okay.
But yeah, I do like some podcasts, and I look at it all as like education, right? So I try to get podcasts if I'm going to podcast about things that, you know, I might not be getting in my audiobook, right? Because educational consumption, as we get older is a little harder, right? And the news is a useless outlet for really anything productive nowadays. So like, how do you gain sort of worldly experience? So it's like books are a really good tool for that. But podcasts can be more current events, um, areas that, I don't want to like read a whole book on this, but whatever it might be. So that's sort of how I split that there.
And do you like avoid CrossFitty type ones then?
Yes, in full transparency, yes. Yeah, yeah, and I think there's a few reasons to that. One, you know, my whole life is CrossFit, so I think it's important for me to have a diversified perspective.
Yeah.
And so if I live CrossFit 24/7, I have to make sure to get my head outside that world. So, I'm still plugged in, as plugged in you can get, but I'm not like, oh, like, you know, the CrossFit podcast is in the top of my list. I'll definitely I'll pick a few that I'm like, someone's like, hey, you got to listen to this. That's of course, and that's why podcasts are great, right? Where it's like it's an easy way to consume something if it's relevant, current, so on and so forth, and quick.
Mm. Do you like doing them?
I do, yeah. So I love the opportunity to share knowledge, to be a part, to listen, to learn. And it's something that for the longest time, I always thought to myself, why do people want to listen to me? And then, it's like, I don't know. And then I finally got to the point where, well, if one person listens to it and they're like, oh, that was cool, that was insightful, then that's one more than zero. And, that's a good thing, right? Like, it's sort of like, it's making some sort of positive impact or adding some sort of value. So that's my guiding light when it's, when I'm like, I hope I'm, interesting for people or whatever it might be.
Yeah, no, I definitely empathize with that. I think like I run a show and that's my view with every episode where it's like just one, if one person listens and says
That's
like
right.
that was all right, then it's fine.
Right.
Yeah, because I think you can go too deep in the other way of like doubting yourself. Like I did an interview recently and the whole way through it, all I was thinking is like, why am I on this? Like, why have they asked me to do it? Like this, I ended up like just talking in circles because of it and like, trying to
Yeah.
fill what I feared would be a dead space after I stopped talking. So then I just basically didn't stop talking. So
Right.
yeah, hopefully that never sees the light of day. When it comes to training and like fitness, like there's so many different things that we could talk about. Like you're a games competitor for like 7 different times. You're
Yeah.
a Flow Master with HQ. You're like, you've got Reebok One Nation, the Ham Plan with Hobart. You like, I sort of feel like you could have your own little mini series on this where like we could talk about each of those things in depth. But like, I suppose the main reason I wanted you on was to preview the games, but I did want to touch on like some stuff before we got talking about that. So
Yeah.
I suppose the most recent thing that's come to light is the affiliate programming that's come out.
Yep. Yeah.
And you and James are like heading it up, I guess, or are involved with it.
Yep.
How did that come about? Like, how did that initiate?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so my role now, so yeah, like you said, that, I've always worn a lot of hats, and CrossFit has always been sort of that red thread, if not directly, like on seminars or owning or running gyms, and of which I still, have my One Nation gyms. But so, my main role is the director of US gym operations for CrossFit. And which is, I always look at like that as my role is such a honor and opportunity to take care of our affiliates, right? And add value, take care of our current gyms, and how do we, bring on new gyms and help and support our ecosystem. And as we know, the affiliate is the epicenter of CrossFit, right? And then from there, the programming thing was always one of those things where, in talking with Eric of this value add for affiliates and how important programming is to the affiliate. And obviously with the Ham Plan, we had been doing that for some time, and myself and James and Spencer and Travis, we really dedicated ourselves to creating a resource that was, based in true CrossFit methodology, because that's what we do and we preach. And then also really just taking off, how do we support our coaches, affiliate owners, and delivering the programming? So it's less of, hey, here's a workout. It's more of, here's a resource to help you actually execute this, right? A workout is useless if it's not implemented correctly and therefore actually executed appropriately, right? So there's this huge linchpin on coaching resources, coaching development. And that's really where this all came to be. And we had the opportunity to to be acquired by CrossFit and now start to deliver this to even more, right? And I think that that's something that the goal of CAP, CrossFit Affiliate Programming, is simple. It's to have a resource available to affiliates if they choose to partake, and our goal is to make it the best resource that one could ever have. And that to me is the exciting piece, where obviously with the Ham Plan, our goal was that, but also, when you're smaller, you're limited by resources, right? And what you can do. And we never wavered from that goal. It's like, how do we keep delivering something to our affiliates that helps them, whether, deliver a better product, give something to their staff, and then also grow their business, right? Where like, whether it's give them more time, give them, programming is a simple way to actually evaluate it. Are my people getting better, right? Like, and that's really what it comes down to. It's like, is your program effective? Well, we know that, in terms of CrossFit as well, work capacity across broad time and modal domains, which is times going down, lifts going up, getting more reps, and then all the other things fall into place, right? I look better, feel better, and because I'm performing better. And so that's the driving function, but there's got to be way more secondary goals to that too. And so if you pull it back, if my coaches are getting better, then I can implement the programming better. My athletes get better. They're safer. They're moving better. They're moving faster. They're moving more weight, right? So we kind of extrapolate it back. It's like it starts with the affiliate owner and the coaching staff in order to then disseminate to the members, and then for them to get their results. And that's really the focus of what CAP is, and what our vision is to deliver those resources and tools to our gyms.
And did you go to HQ with the idea, or was it the opposite? Like, were HQ on the lookout for, like, was this, whose idea was it, I guess?
Yeah. So I think in any idea, when it comes to this, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
That, of like, and I think, keep this in mind, right? Like, CrossFit has always been the epicenter for programming, right? When I first started, you went to CrossFit.com.
Yeah.
And that was where you started, because that was the only place where you could find CrossFit workouts. So it was almost like, and now, all right, well, how do we deliver a resource to the gyms, which is more than just a workout, right? So it was a nice sort of iterative conversation that then turned into, hey, I think this is something that we can really add some value to the gyms, and making a few key decisions along the way, right? And a few, and the biggest question, and the answer is, we decided to not have it included in the affiliate fee, because one, we didn't want to make it mandatory, right? The beautiful aspect of CrossFit in our affiliate community is that they're affiliates, and we want you to be able to do whatever you want for the most part, right? So by including something in the affiliate fee, we didn't want to make it feel like it's mandated or anything, to that measure. So that was really important. And also there's a nice market of other programmers out there. So making sure that we have we haven't landed on a price, but we will, roughly our expected price is around $150 US a month. And that will allow the other, the marketplace to still live. And because that's important, we didn't want to come in and essentially say, hey, we're just going to blow everyone else out of the water from a cost perspective. So there's a few of those reasons that we chose that, because the CrossFit community is very important to us. It's who we are. And we also understand that this is a product that some gyms might want to use and some gyms might not. And that's what we expect and want, right? So that was the beautiful conversation. And we're fortunate enough from the Hand Plan perspective to have developed a product and a foundation that we can build on for the affiliates. And that was something that we're really excited about and honored to have the opportunity, because that's always been our goal, is to always build off the CrossFit foundation.
Yeah.
And we, doing myself over 400 seminars between level 1s and level 2s, we have a pretty good understanding of, what the educational framework looks like, where our coaches and trainers struggle and need the most guidance from our level 2 environment specifically. And then the biggest question we get is, how do we have continual coaching development, right? I think it's safe to say that everyone would love to continually get better, right? And all right, so how do you do that? And programming and the tools given with that are the best way to continually develop.
Is there, like, have you got a specific type of gym or a specific demographic in mind when you set it up, or is it a case of anyone who wants to avail of programming with warm-ups and cues and all that kind of stuff involved? Like, say if someone previously was with Ham, or someone who's with Proven, or whoever else. I know there's a lot of different options for affiliate programming. Is it just like a competitor in the market, or is there a specific type of gym that you're maybe eyeing up?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think the short answer is, we actually we spent a lot of time in working with our affiliates in the past and current ones, of asking that question: how can we better deliver a product to you? And by you being the affiliate, we're going to get all sorts of answers, because you might be a 1-year affiliate or a 10-year affiliate. I just bought a new gym and I have an existing member base. All of these variables affect that answer, right?
Yeah.
And so we've developed the tool, the Class Plan tool, to really appeal and add value, is our goal, to our veteran coaches, the 10-year veteran, the level 3 coach, the one that has a robust amount of knowledge, as well as the green coach, the brand new coach. And so it's set up in ways where, so we have the workout, we have the scaling options, we have the intended stimulus, right? Where, here's a good example, is that, we have an RX and then 2 scaling options. And the purpose behind that was always where, because no one fits into scaling, like you're level 1, you're level 2, you're A, you're whatever, RX. We all know that everyone has different abilities, physical and psychological limitations. But we also know that if I just put a workout on the board and it's 9-7-5 muscle ups and squat snatches at 135, members are going to look at that workout and say, I can't do that. I'm not going to go into the gym. Right. So some gyms might not program those movements because they're afraid of that reaction. And some gyms that do just put that, people say, I can't do muscle ups, or I can't squat snatch, so I can't come in. So, but if we put on the board, say, a level 1 workout, that's, some iteration of that with ring rows and, a PVC pipe, power snatch into overhead squat or something to that measure, where someone's like, oh, I can do ring rows instead of muscle ups, I'll come in. Right. Oh, I know what a muscle up transition is. Oh, I'll come in. And then in the coaching notes, we break down, here's the stimulus we're trying to achieve, right? Here's the rep range, here's the loading, here's how we can scale it. Here are some options, right? To again, educate where, some newer coaches might have to stick to more, strict guidelines, or veteran coaches can make sure that, all right, today we're going to scale to this type of scaling option, but I have a lot of wiggle room within that, right? Logistical considerations, how to brief this workout at the whiteboard to a diverse group of athletes, and then a minute by minute breakdown of the class, an actual timeline, general, specific, warm up, loading phase, workout, post workout. And I know this is a long winded answer to your question, but this is a tool that anyone can leverage. Really the question I always ask affiliates is, well, why do you want to outsource your program? Right? Really, what is the purpose? And I think there are a few answers. Obviously, these are generalizations, but one, I'm a new affiliate, and I would like to have programming that is trusted by people, know what they're doing, and I can learn from. Because I could program, but it's not necessarily a big strength of mine. And it's safe to say that most of us in the very beginning of opening up a gym probably fall into that, whether we want to admit it or not, right? Because we haven't had experience programming for gyms, right? So that could be one group of people. I swing it to the other end of the spectrum would be, the veteran coach, the 5 to 10 year. That's like, I love programming, but I'm just maybe a little burned out from it, want a different perspective, want some more time, right? Programming is a lot of time. The gym owner that has a bigger staff, right? So like, if you're if you're coaching and you don't really have anyone else coaching for you, you don't need to deliver materials to yourself, right? But the minute you have a staff, you need to give them tools so they can implement the programming. That's where the real time comes into play. It's now you have to make your lesson plans, your whiteboard briefs, your expectations, your guardrails, all of those things. And now we're talking 10 plus hours a week just on that back of office stuff to give to your staff. 10 hours a week. Like, and this is where, like, I always say, it's like, if that's the case, that's a simple math equation, whether you're doing it or you're paying someone to do it, right? Usually in 1 week, it pays for itself in just hours from a cost of the programming, right? Let alone the opportunity to then go work on other things, right?
Yeah.
And as a coach, I love to coach. I love to interact with people because that's what I love to do. And I think every gym owner might have a different sort of passion. If you're like, hey, I love programming, it's an art. That's what fuels me. Then you should do your own programming, right? Like, and that's the beauty of it, right? So there are a lot of personas that might fit into that, and that is, or it's like, hey, I don't like this programming, right? Now, yeah, it's traditional classic CrossFit, but if you want to do something different, then great, right? And that's the beauty of making it optional, but also, it's important that we at CrossFit are always driving to educate too, right? And that's something that obviously we hold close to our hearts, because that's what with myself, James, and Spencer, we've done for over a decade is put people through their seminars and know the importance of that. And the daily sort of reminders, like when I read a lesson plan that I don't write, whether James or someone else has written, and I'm going to implement it, I learn.
Yeah.
Like, man, like that's a great way to for this warm up, how to teach that. Like I become a better coach no matter what. And that's a really valuable, asset to have.
Was there any angst in like letting go the company that you'd built up? Because I know you were saying like, oh, it's a smaller company or whatever, but sometimes that can lead to more pride, like more, like less of a willingness to let go, I guess.
Yeah, gosh, really good question. I was definitely, it's one of those things. It was almost 50-50, right?
Yeah.
Where the hard work and time and pride you have into something, but then, and this is how I knew this was right, and how I knew I was doing this for the right reasons, was I knew that by this acquisition happening and expanding, we would reach more gyms and help more people, make it more accessible. And that to me was always the goal. There's deep part of me was always like, I know that, as being a part of, if this could ever be a part of CrossFit, we can impact more people. And that's always been the goal, and honestly, it's like, for me, I went from, that's why I wanted to open up an affiliate, because I could reach more people. I give trainers opportunities to be coaches and do what they love. And in my role at CrossFit now as the director of US Gym Ops, it's that same purpose. Like I can help and work really hard to do that. And it comes in different ways, but that's something that for me is like, that's how I felt. Obviously I'm fortunate enough to also be heavily involved with it currently, right? And still am. So yeah, I would maybe feel differently if it were like, just, if the ship was sailing out and I wasn't on it, right? But I'm still
Yeah.
a part of that. So I definitely, I definitely think it would be different if I wasn't a part of it, for sure.
You've mentioned there a couple of times your role as the director of gym ops. Is that like, so obviously other nations have like country managers because obviously there's less density of affiliates, I suppose, in other countries. So is it a case that like there's kind of regional, like I remember there was like a California person selected and a Texas one. Is that like they're kind of I know it's not countries, but they're like the country managers, like those regional managers, and then you're overseeing those, or is this a totally separate thing altogether?
That's a really good question. So the structure, the CrossFit is such we're so global that we have the country managers. They have a little more scope and responsibility, also because of the languages, right,
Hmm.
and the social media. So the U.S. is a little different beast because it's one big place, and then we have a lot of affiliates there. Where in France, right, you have X amount of affiliates there, but they have their France social media handle those things, and things are translated. So that's what a lot of those, and they take care of the gyms, but also other things because of the nature of translation, right?
Yeah.
And that's important to us that we're always maintaining the voice and those things. And it's the country manager amazing with that, right? I mean, I speak one language poorly, let alone two. Where in the U.S. we have an East and West regional manager, and then we have our U.S. reps. And so if we think about that, and then we have myself over the U.S. and the purpose behind that is, as the density of gyms is so big in the U.S. that how do we give proper support to all of our affiliates at that level?
Yeah.
So it's definitely a unique nut to crack because where just East and West alone we have thousands of gyms, right? And then so we distill down to the US reps. And the nice thing is they're affiliate owners, they're in their community, and that's the way it should be, right? Where we are community driven, and that's important that we have our US reps from that perspective. And then we have Mike on the East, and Mike Marone and Jordan Holland on the West. And that's where like just that have that 10,000-foot view, but also can do a lot of the stuff that like at the ground level, it's not necessarily necessary, right? Where it's like, and it's also as the US starts to open up restrictions, we can also do a lot more in-person visits, which is really nice. Whereas, it's when everything got restructured, we were still in a virtual world, right?
Yeah.
So and that's the most exciting thing really I look at the games as a turning point, specifically in the States, as sort of this opportunity to really kind of, our events and things like that. So I'm excited to, over the next year, to in the States specifically, get back out, boots on the ground, get to our gyms where it's been as we know, it hasn't been easy to do that.
Yeah. It's a really cool job title as well. Director of US Gym Ops just sounds
Yeah.
like
It definitely took me a while. I was like, man, I don't know if I'm even cool enough to say this title. It's taken me a while to get used to it. So yeah, but it's it and it's funny because people are like, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, my goal is, it's like my goal is to take care of our affiliates, right? And that's where it's an honor to have that opportunity because one, I have been a part of affiliates, I've been a part of the community, and we definitely, for what's happened over the past year, we have so much, like we got to help our community, help our gyms, and that's really what we're working on. Is that the last year has been just tough. I mean, for the world, right?
Mm.
And but I it's safe to say that the gym world has been hit hard because we're an in-person community driven business, right? And that's been a part that we have been kind of pulled away from the past year, getting back to it now. So just providing resources and tools for the gym, for our affiliates and gyms to get on their feet, stay on their feet, and be set up for success. So that's it's something, it's a responsibility I don't take lightly.
Yeah.
And talking to our gyms, talking to gyms that have that are no longer a part of CrossFit, that have left for whatever reason, learning from them and hoping that they come back to our community if they see fit over time. It's just listening and learning, and it's I've always been on the ground, right? I've always been in seminars and you know, with work, you know, working almost 40 weekends a year for 10 years. And, you know, that's something that I'll, I'll never lose track of, is how important it is just to be, listen, and be around, right? Because, you know, people are happy, they're sad, they're whatever it is. Like when you're around them, you'll feel it, right? And that's something that's something that we take, you know, very, very seriously, is listening to our people, right?
Yeah.
Because that's who we are. We're, you know, we're in the trenches, right? We're on the floor, we're coaching people, and that's what we do at affiliates.
Yeah. You we've talked about programming there, and you mentioned that the games is going to be a turning point for
Yeah,
in the US at least. And I suppose if we combine those two and move on a new trajectory, so like the first handful of workouts have been announced for the games. So we've got like the swim paddle,
mm.
like that's about all we know about that. We've like the pig is coming back, and you know it's going to be with the sled drag and muscle ups, and then we've got the handstand ramp walk with the parallettes. That was, I think that was like 2017 maybe or 16 that was in it before.
Yeah,
And then there's a sprint, which I mean, if I was doing it, would be a slow jog at best, like over that distance. Like when I saw a sprint, I was like, oh, how short is this going to be? And then I was like Googling yards to meters, and I was like, that's not a sprint. That's so like, have there been any surprises for you in what you've seen announced so far? Or do you think this is like, if you were to predict what will be programmed, this would be in or around the realms of what you'd expect to see?
yeah. You know, put it this way: everything that's been announced has been done before,
Yeah.
right? Dave has always been, and he's been quoted saying, "Know your history." Right? Know your history. And you know, so I think that that's something that I remember we did. I remember we did the football field sprint when I was competing an individual. This was in Carson, and it was it was almost identical to that. It was like a 500 something yard sprint. It was like a middle, back, down, back, full yard, and back, something like whatever it was. It was like you said, it was, you felt like you were sprinting, but when you watched it on camera, you're like, okay, I'm walking. You know, it's like cement legs. But you know, the swim paddle, you know, I'll never forget that event as long as I live. It was awful. Thought my arms were gonna fall off. You know, the handstand, that's the handstand walk. I mean, that's, we've seen that in all iterations at all levels. And you know, and so I think, I think that, you know, specifically the top games athlete, to me, if you watch, and you know, even half of their Instagram over the past year, they've been doing all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, no big surprises, but
I
when
have this
people are
idea.
scared,
I have this idea, right? That so event 3, I think, is the sprint, and event 4 says like OF, so like on field or whatever they're going to
mm,
announce it. And I have this theory that event 4 is going to be announced, and it'll be like they finish the sprint, and then it's going to be like straight into like a 10-mile run or something disgusting, like something, because he loved so much the turnaround at the ranch last year. Like he got so much jazz out of doing that, and like you can see it. I was watching the documentary last night, and he's still so chuffed with how it turned out, and like he loves that Fraser flipped him off, like, and he loves that people are giving out about it, like, so it would be something that he would do. But I mean, the issue there is you'd have to have everyone sprinting at once and then running at once, or else it's kind of shit, because they're going to see the first heat and be like, oh crap.
yeah, you know, I definitely think that, you know, what was so special about last year was that things were able to be done that really can never be done
Yeah.
again because of the size, right? And I think that that's, so I think that you're definitely right. The you know, the element of surprise is a wonderful aspect and cornerstone of the CrossFit Games. Um, I remember in 2010 we were locked in a room for the final event. So because to your point, it was a surprise. So I was in the last heat. We were locked in a room while all the predicated heats were going.
Yeah.
And so, and they've since done that too, right? They you know, and I remember, I think it was on, whether it's the demo team, I forget what it was, or competing on team, but I remember when Dave was, you know, brought that back. And you know, so the element of surprise is a huge aspect of CrossFit, and you know, unknown, right? And that's what is so special about it. But logistics, you know, obviously throw, you know, a wrench into that. But I would say it's safe to say that no matter, you know, there's always some element of surprise that will be there, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's fun about it, and that's what makes the game so special. And you know, it is a true test of athleticism, and you know, because your ability to just rely on raw talent and preparation as opposed to strategy, right? And that's what I love. I'm a little more old school where it's like, let's just go as hard as we can and see what happens, right? It's fun to see when that plays out.
When you're in that room, when you're locked in that room, I assume it's because, oh, there's a twist to whatever's being announced. They don't want us to see it. They don't want us to have an
Oh yeah,
advantage.
yeah.
So then, like, we'll say there's whatever 8 or 10 people in the room. Are you guys like, what do you think it is? Like, are you talking to each other? Or are you just like trying to avoid falling into that trip? Like,
I mean, the nervous energy is very high, and the uncomfortable interactions are very high as well, right? I mean, you're with your competitors. They're your friends, but they're also your competitors. You all of you want to know what the workout is for the most part. All of you would like just the workout, and all of you want it to be over, right? So everyone kind of feels the same, but the stress is super high. So it's a unique interaction, but but it's also, you don't want to waste any extra energy, and everyone's a super dialed competitor, right? So they'll also make sure that they're not wasting energy or talking or goofing around or things like that. But it's there's definitely that element of, at that point, it's always, everyone wants to go, no one wants to wait, right? So it's just the waiting in and of itself, which is very painstaking.
yeah, I can imagine. You were there like 7 times. You've done individual and team in California and in Madison.
Yep.
Is there something that springs to mind for you that the competitors might find surprising, like outside of, say, the surprises that might come up in the workout, like as in, say, someone who's experiencing it for the first time, or someone, because obviously we're in this like weird place where there's people who haven't competed in person since maybe early 2020 or even 2019, and then there's plenty more who've like never competed on this stage or anything close to it before. Is that a factor that like coaches and athletes and people are going to have to like really work hard on before they get there, or is it the type of thing that maybe the people who are getting that far don't even need to worry about that?
Yeah, I think that, and I think it's a generalization, but I think that obviously when you go to the stage of the games, it's the big stage, and newer athletes, younger athletes that don't have experience are definitely at a disadvantage than veteran athletes that have some level of experience. And but we also see this in any level of sport, where it doesn't mean young athletes or rookies can't rise to the occasion, right? I mean, but more often than not, experience is very powerful. Ask anyone, would you take an experienced athlete, over a veteran athlete when it comes to how they're going to handle a situation? Of course, everyone's going to go with the veteran, but it doesn't mean it's a 9 out of 10, you're probably right, and once in a while it'll be a miss. But I think the biggest thing for new athletes, that what the struggle is just it's a lot of stimulus, and it can be overwhelming, and you might be reacting fine. It's just, you just get exhausted, right? Think about, I don't know, like your first day on the job, or your first day in, like, sort of first anything. It's exhausting, and you're doing nothing special, nothing overexerting. It's just new. The stimulus is new, so your responses are new. So much is unknown, and heightened by the fact now that the media is so high. So, I mean, anytime there's a camera or a microphone in your face, you're a little stressed out because you have to perform, right? And then you have to actually perform in CrossFit, right? So I think all of that leads to just, and that's why you see athletes kind of fizzle out or get burned out, because that anxiety and stress, your body doesn't know the difference between physical, emotional, or psychological stressors. And you're just going to, that's why you see athletes, man, like, they just don't look like they have the edge.
Yeah.
And you see that often at the games, right? You're like, well, like, and that's why when you see the top athletes, you're like, wow. Think about how crazy it is when you watch, at the CrossFit Games, like between the first and last seats, it almost looks like they're in different categories, right? Which is crazy because they're the fittest in the world. And a lot of that is, one, how fit the fittest really are, which is always amazing, but then also their ability to handle and rise to the occasion, or get beat by the occasion. And I can speak that from experience, that I've been on both sides of that equation, where I've risen and I've been my best, and then I've been beat. Yeah. And you almost feel helpless when you're in that position, and then what happens is you just and you're fighting yourself as opposed to others. So you become your worst enemy as a competitor when that needs to be the last thing on your mind.
Yeah. It's interesting though as well, because like you mentioned the veteran thing, and I remember I heard Fraser talk about one of his first competitions where he was like too nervous to eat, and like just kind
Mhm.
of forgot, and he was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I haven't eaten in hours," and like he said he
Yep.
felt great, and then he just couldn't snatch like what, like it was a menial weight to him at the time, and he just couldn't do it, and he
Yeah.
just couldn't, and then he was like, "Oh, okay," and then you think of years later where every other athlete is going in to the games at a really low body fat percentage, and he's determined to have his as high as he can, like
Yep.
healthily and comfortably, like, or performance wise, keep it so that he can like lose it as he goes on through the weekend. Whereas these other people are like, it's crazy when you think those, the little things that you remember, the little things that mold
Yeah.
the competitor that you are. And if you, like, I spoke to Valner recently, and he was like, it's everything is information, and it's just you get better at knowing what do I need to remember and what is totally irrelevant to me. Whereas I'm sure for a lot of the rookies turning up, everything seems relevant, and everything seems like, oh my god, I need to do what he's doing, I need to do what she's doing, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and all of those brings up some amazing points of, it's, and who do you listen to, right? Like they're like when I was 21 competing in my first CrossFit games, I just remember, like, I don't know, I just read materials, right? Like, and I'm very fortunate that, like, I think it was easier then than it is now, to be honest with you, because now there's so much noise and there's so many people to listen to, as opposed to that. I read the CrossFit Journal. I did the Zone. I read CrossFit Journal issue 21. I read the Paleo Diet for Athletes because that was recommended reading at my level 1. Like, and I know it's like I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm like, that's what I did because that's what it was. And I learned all of this stuff. I learned what I'll never forget when I read that article. I read one of the articles in the journal that you got to carry a little more body fat than you want to when you look at your best, right? And I was like, wow, okay, because exactly what you just said, and that explained it's spot on, you know, and but it's counterintuitive when you think that, like, hey, I got to be in the best shape of my life. I got to be, and no, like, well, peaking for performance is different than peaking for aesthetics,
Yeah.
right? So you got to learn. So now it's overwhelming for new athletes because there's so much out there, and you know, sometimes the most powerful approach is the simple approach.
Yeah.
And nowadays it can be, I think it's challenging to sift through that noise and see what's just the simple approach that works for me today.
Yeah, be interesting to see if anyone like is wolfing down Snickers and eating
Yeah.
Gatorade powder.
Listen, like, let, you can get away with a lot when you're genetically gifted. It's like, everyone talks about, oh, what about this athlete or that athlete? I heard they ate this or that, but I'll tell you this, and knowing and being fortunate friends with a lot of the best athletes in the world and competing with them, and some of them are so special and gifted. Yeah, some of their diets I was like, man, that's amazing that you can do that. But as they've gotten older, they've cleaned it up
Do you think
because
does it annoy CrossFit? Um, Maybe more so the old regime, I guess, where people are performing at this really high level, and then they're like, eating a Snickers in between workouts, or that kind of thing.
no, and here's why. One, I think that and here's why. Just because someone is winning and performing at the best and eating, say, whatever, pizza or whatever, it doesn't mean that they're not. It doesn't mean that they're optimized.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the fallacy that many people mistake with even programming and anything. Right. Is that, well, yeah, there are things that are effective now, but one, is it something that is affecting you now or later? Also, are we leaving something on the table?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, and that's the beauty of sport, is that, the results will speak for themselves. And here's how, certainly when it comes to nutrition and quality of movement, I look at nutrition and quality of movement almost in the same vein, where I can just move like a barbarian, and if I have enough capacity and raw strength, I can be pretty effective, right? We see that with some athletes, but the tendency to, that your propensity for injury goes through the roof. You're not going to be as efficient. There's going to be a lot of things there, right? So that's something that is and I look at athletes. I use Rich Froning because he moves very well. Matt Frazier moves very well, right? There are other athletes that have had the capacity been through the roof, but they haven't had moved well, and they've been riddled with injuries.
Yeah.
Then nutrition's the same thing, right? You can kind of just fuel up, don't even think about it, and still perform, right? But over time, what do we see all the athletes doing? Tightening up their diet, dialing it in, right? And you see that because that's an opportunity for them to stay at the top of their game. As we get older, time and age doesn't help us in performance for the most part. So how do you so you have to find ways to stay on top of it. Nutrition, if that's the dial you turn, imagine if you turn that 5 years earlier, right?
Yeah.
So and same thing with quality of movement. Imagine if you started moving better, right? So, and that's I haven't talked to any athlete that says, man, I wish I learned this sooner, or built better habits sooner. Everyone says that.
Yeah. It's interesting, like when I think of the CrossFit pyramid, I think mine was like a Christmas tree for a long time, where like the nutrition was the little, the stump, the trunk of the tree, and then everything else started. And I was
I've
like,
never
oh,
heard
I'll just keep the other ones big, and then nutrition won't matter. And then like you say, I recently realized like, oh, cool, I wasted fucking 15 years with this like little stump at the bottom when it should have been the widest. Like, so yeah,
I've never heard that before. That's such a phenomenal analogy. Now I wish that's good. I'm going to use that going forward.
Yeah, just give me credit for it.
I'll give you all the credit. Yeah.
Yeah. We something that usually comes up in the games as well as like a new piece of equipment. Mm-hmm. We saw a lot of the torque tanks being used in the semifinals.
Oh, that's right.
So I was kind of curious, do you think would that be a new piece of equipment if that turns up, or do you think that we can expect something totally different again?
Yeah, I mean, this is just speculation. Is that those little tanks, or those are great for indoor competitions, right? Mm-hmm. So when you have a field, nothing beats a sled, right? So
say that to Castro in 2000 and whatever year that was, 19.
Yeah, right. So, but yeah, those things are great to, I mean, I've never actually, I pushed one a long time ago. I think at Rogue, when they people were like, this thing's dumb, of course, 3 years later, it's the coolest thing ever. Maybe, it's a great way to standardize the sled push and things like that. So I think there's some cool stuff there. But yeah, I love the equipment stuff. I think that's why I love the games. It's when we did the sandbags over the hay bales, I loved that because it was grunt work and so things like that. It's exciting. I usually don't speculate just because I don't ever foresee myself in the stratosphere with Dave and his ability to program and foresee and create unique challenges and pieces of equipment alongside with Bill at Rogue. So that's always such an exciting aspect of the games for me, is that piece of it. It makes it a special event.
Yeah. Speaking of Dave, he put up a post about 5 months ago when he visited Madison to look at the arena and stuff, and he was in a pool. I think it was in the university or one of the colleges around.
Yeah.
And I was curious, is he just being an asshole, making people panic, thinking that there's going to be 2 swimming events? Or because again, we hark back to last year, and that was so perfect, where you could have the assault bike and you could have the pool, because you only needed 5 assault bikes, and then you could swap them out for 5 brand new assault bikes, and it was fine. Because obviously, if you have you're only going to fit 5 to maybe 8 people in a pool at a time, and if you start having 5, 6 heats, those assault bikes or whatever piece of equipment you got the other end are going to be screwed at some point, and it's going to cause variations in them. So do you think that is something that might happen? Because we haven't seen that before with a larger field, a pool with some kind of apparatus around it.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think we did a pool event, the first pool event. It was in California, and it was the bar muscle up workout.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So it was a swim, bar muscle up, and yeah. So I definitely.
Did that have any effect? Did you notice anything, when you the water and all that kind of stuff, or was it just you just had to accept whatever your little area was like?
Yeah, I I hate swimming. I'm not good at it. So it was the swim. I was like, yeah, I mean, so yeah, that had an effect the pool. Yeah, other than that, I mean, it was great. I mean, it's, so I mean, I love swimming workouts. So yeah, and the pool is a unique opportunity to do things like that, right?
Yeah.
Do a little swim workout like we saw last year. So it's definitely not outside the scope. Like I said, we've seen it in the past. So yeah, that it's going to be fun to see that unfold.
Do you think anyone will get a shock with the fact that it's 15 events again? Because obviously it's been, well, I suppose we've had a couple of years where last year it was like odd, and then the year before was odd in a different way, where some people did one event and went home
Yeah.
again. Do you think that anyone, like, is anyone at this stage going to actually be surprised by that kind of thing and going to be overloaded with the capacity of work required?
I mean, I think that no more than it would in any year, right?
Yeah.
It beats athletes up in different ways. Like, that's part of the test, right? The part of the test is that. So you're definitely going to see some athletes shine through that, and some athletes struggle. And I think, but I don't think, and maybe because of what the last year and the pandemic has created, maybe you're going to see more athletes maybe fall off sooner than you would expect, maybe. But I think that would be a really cool assessment after the fact. But I don't think it'll affect the top athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you know that volume, it's like returning athletes know what they're in for. So I don't think you'll see a difference really at the top.
Yeah. So like next week, then we've got age groups and the adaptive athletes are kicking off on Tuesday. We've got the individuals on Wednesday and then the teams on Thursday. So you've done individual and you've done team. Was one more like harrowing than the other? Like, or is it at that level? Is it also intense that it's just a different kind of intensity?
Yeah, it's just different. I mean, the individual volumes in a league of its own.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with team, it's just different. Team is a team, right? So you're gonna, it's a different feel. I mean, when you're competing for others, right? And if you're on the team for the right reason, and you're there at the right people, you never want to let your people down. So just when you're individual, you're by yourself, right? So yeah, there is no volume. There is no volume, equator to the individual. It's just a different stress. But I also say that from experience of both sides, right? So if you've just been to the games as a team, you don't really know what the individual is and what that looks like. And then to the age groups and masters, those, again, just speaking just from an outsider, those events are going to be hard, right? And more volume. Like most teenagers and probably more masters aren't training like games athletes are all year round. So the volume will be relatively higher for them too. So I think it's a unique test across for all the platforms, right? So I mean, I just think like if a lot like 40 and 50-year-olds, they're not training 6-7 hours a day. Some might be, but majority probably aren't. So doing two, and then at the intensity, that's what gets you. You don't hit 2 or 3 workouts a day at 100% intensity often, and that will make you sore, right? And that'll beat you up a little bit and zap you for the next day. So those things are the unique characteristics.
Can we expect to see you back on the competition floor? I think your masters next year. You'd be 35,
Yeah,
wouldn't you?
next year, yeah. So Hobart made it as a master because he's a year older than I am. So I don't, I've committed to, I'm going to just train the way I train, and I'll always take part in, the CrossFit competitions at all levels. So if the chips fall and I can make it, of course I'll go there and have some fun. But it is not a priority on my list. But
I imagine it slightly moved up on the priorities when he qualified this year, though. Where it's like, oh crap,
yeah,
I better do it now.
I definitely don't like being one-upped by him, but yeah, I mean I do have to admit he is a little more gifted of an athlete than me. So I have my work cut out for me to stick with them as we get older. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go for three little predictions from you then. So what 3 women do you think would be on the podium? So in any order, just any 3.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm definitely out of my CrossFit Games knowledge here, but I would be remiss not to have Tia on there. Yeah. She's a complete weapon. I'm going to say Annie just because I love Annie and we've kind of been through the ranks and I love that story. And maybe Cara Webb as well.
That'd be two phenomenal stories, in fairness.
two stories and two moms. Maybe I have a soft spot because I'm on the older side, that they have had kids. It's like that, and I love them as athletes. So yeah, those are my three predictions.
And what about the men's then?
The men's one, it's exciting. I think Vellner's. I think we'll see Vellner up top. I'd like to see. I think Chandler. I'd like to see him. A fifth place. Or he was like sixth last year, something like that. So it'd be fun to see him kind of playing up there. And then one of the new guys. Like there's a few of the new guys that I saw down in the MAC, the Mid Atlantic qualifier. The guy who won. So I think there's some fresh blood. I think will potentially be on the podium. So
I think that's the good thing about the 15 events as well, and the say even just the ones we know of they're all so radically different from each other that it just takes, say you look at someone like Colton Mertens who was at MAC, and it's he was at Granite, and he's like, certain events are just so in his wheelhouse, and then certain others are outside of it. And you got other people like that. If there's some kind of really heavy bar, like deadlift, whatever, Royce Dunn is going to own it. Whereas if there's he might not do particularly well in the sprint event. So there's going to be so much flip-flopping that, especially when Fraser's not there as well, that it's going to be a lot more. I think it's going to really come down to the last couple of events on the Sunday for the first time, in years.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to watch it and be a part of it.
Yeah. So I was going to ask if you have any standout wild cards that you think people should be looking out for, but I'm assuming it's those young guys that you saw at MAC and other events.
Yeah, definitely those. Yeah, the young guns are going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah. So I'm kind of wary. I'm wary for them now because you've said all that about the media and how it can cause stress and stuff. So I'm kind of maybe someone needs to ring them and just say you need to just.
I'm sure they have some good people in their corner. So. Yeah,
well, they definitely all listen to this as well. So if they don't, they only have themselves to blame.
I love that.
Right, look, thanks again. I really appreciate you coming on. And like I said, we have a lot of unturned stones there that I'd love to pick your brain on. So we should get together again sometime.
Let's do it. Just shoot me a note. We'll set it up.